This week on The Real Housewives of Miami.
But scary.
Be quiet. I literally...
Don't you tell this liar. Martina had a
Oh my God.
You're a liar.
There he is out.
Such a liar.
Yo, what is up, everybody? Welcome back. So we're going to be talking about The Real Housewives of Miami, Season 7, Episode 3. Let's get right into it. Oh my gosh, you guys, do we have a lot to talk about this episode? Let's begin. So the episode begins with a foreshadowing of a very heated fight that will occur between Guerdy and Julia at Marisol's wedding party. And when I say heated, it's gonna get heated. But then we go back 3 days before that to actually start the episode. So Larsa and Lisa, they're back from Miami, from Milan. They had a great time as far as the fashion and everything. We see Adriana go to the beach with her French boyfriend, and she's going topless. But the first actual scene is Alexia and Frankie. They meet up with a lady, one of Alexia's friends. They're at this cool place. It's like a bar sort of type of venue. So Alexia is the one that's planning this wedding party for Marisol, which is nice. The place is really, really nice. It's essentially the interior of it is designed as if it were a huge yacht, but it's indoors, obviously. So it's going to be a surprise wedding celebration. Alexia did talk to her friend because she is friends with the lady who owns this place. They talk a little bit about Todd. It was sad to see Frankie talk about Todd. You can tell that he's very hurt, which that makes me even more mad at Todd. But yeah, Alexia then FaceTimes Lisa to invite her, just to check up on her. But Lisa's actually in Canada. Which, by the way, when Lisa told Alexia she was in Canada, Alexia has no filter. She's like, "Oh no, don't tell me that your dad passed away." Well, unfortunately, yes. The answer was yes, her dad did. Her dad died. Which, it's really sad also because by the time Lisa got there, he was already unconscious. So it's not like she was really able to spend a final moment with him. Which I just thought, dang, I guess Larsa was right last week. So yeah, we then see Marisol and Steve. I said this last week, but Marisol looks so good this season, and she's so happy, so maybe that's got something to do with it. So she's super excited. She's sad that her friend's dad just died, but, she loves Steve, and she's happy to tie the knot again. There was a moment when Marisol was actually ready, and she put on her veil and everything, and she had a bracelet, very elegant, that was from Cuba. And for a moment, she thought about her mom, and she cries because she misses her mom and dad, and she'd do anything for her mom to be there in that moment to see her, obviously. And Marisol then acknowledges that she has more years behind her than she does in front of her, so she wants to cherish every moment. So her and Steve go down to the courthouse to get married on his motorcycle, which was kind of cool. So now it's legal. They are legally married in Florida, and married in Scotland, and married spiritually in Mexico. So yeah, I'm so happy for Marisol. Moving along, Julia and Adriana meet up. They go to a vegan restaurant, and Adriana's asking for regular milk. So they seem happy to see each other, but there's definitely, you can tell there's underlying tension and underlying issues. So Julia straight up says, "Oh, you hadn't called me." And Adriana's like, "Well, you haven't called me either. You can pick up the phone too." And Julia says, "I know, but everybody was calling me, congratulating me, asking me about the boys." And Adriana, she's honest. And she says, "To be honest, I was a little surprised how long it took for me to know the news. I would have expected to be one of the first ones. Whereas Alexia was the one that knew everything right away. She was one of the first to meet the boys. And it makes sense why Adriana feels this way. I mean, Adriana was right there. She lived through Julia even thinking about starting this whole adoption process. So yeah, the fact that Julia is now so close to Marysol and Alexia now, yeah, that makes her feel some type of way. But, she's going to let it go. She then offers to throw a baby shower on behalf for the boys. And Julia's like, yeah, okay, that'll be nice. Then they talk about Guerdy, because Adriana, she met up with Guerdy, and Guerdy had opened up about how her and Julia, she feels like Julia's been acting weird. So Adriana is saying this to Julia. Guerdy told Adriana, she doesn't know what did she do to Julia for her to be acting like this. Julia then says that she doesn't feel comfortable in Guerdy's presence anymore because of what happened when they went to the cruise. So then Kiki and Guerdy meet up. Guerdy is being really open this season about life after cancer. It's great to be cancer free. Like, hallelujah. But there's still a lot of negative, a lot of negative after the fact. A lot of when it comes to the actual recovery. So she's being really open about that. They go to this place where they're being stretched, which, is good. Stretching is good for our muscles and bones, I think. So after that, they just talk. Guerdy says that during the summer, Alexia checked up on her a lot. So Kiki's like, oh, well, Alexia just hosted a dinner the other night with all of the ladies. So Guerdy's like, oh, she didn't realize that she wasn't invited. Kiki then proceeds to tell Guerdy some of the stuff that was said about Guerdy at this dinner that wasn't so positive. A lot of them basically said that, she does the most. She's very extra. So, when it comes to Julia, though, they talk about that as well, because Julia talked about that at this dinner. So we know they had that little issue where Guerdy wasn't able to go on the Zoom, whatever. But the main issue that they're focusing on now is what happened on this cruise. So this is what happened. So Julia was supposed to go with Martina on this cruise. Martina got sick, so she couldn't go. Julia then calls Guerdy, and Guerdy goes in Martina's place. So they're there. I think that Guerdy was doing Julia a favor by going with her so she wouldn't be alone. But Julia is the one now saying that she's mad because Guerdy made the whole thing about her and about trying to get connections and trying to get pictures and trying to do this and trying to do that. And I'm like, well, dang, did you just want her to go and shut up and not speak and be mute and whatever? She went there as a favor, and if she's talking to people about connections, hell yeah, you better work. But Julia's upset about this. And then what is, I guess, really upsetting her is that the last night, because Martina wasn't there, they took her name off of this last special dinner. So because Martina's name wasn't there, Guerdy couldn't go in her place. So Guerdy wasn't able to make it to the final dinner, which Guerdy got very upset about. But Julie's upset that Guerdy was upset. So that's the whole thing, which it makes sense. And I get, listen, do I think that Guerdy could have been trying to make everything about her? Again, maybe, but do I think it's that serious for Julia to be like, oh, I don't feel comfortable in her presence? No, it's not that serious. Kiki says to Guerdy, as your friend, I love you, but I do think that you need to tone it down. And Guerdy doesn't really want to listen, which, again, I get why she would be defensive. Why is everybody talking about me? Okay, so then we head over to Canada. Lisa is in her childhood home. Jodi is with her. She's upset. She's thinking about talking at the funeral. She wasn't that close to her father. She's honest about him being an alcoholic. So even though, yes, she grew up with her dad, it's not like he was super present. So the dynamic could have definitely been better. They did try to reconnect about a year ago. They did make some strides, but she feels like it wasn't enough time because it happened right at the very end of his life. But I hope that Lisa, she cherishes those few moments, and I hope that she's thankful that she actually, at least she had the opportunity to have them, even though, I know she wishes that she could have had more, but it's good that she was able to at least have some. And she is right. She said life is short, and that's why I always say make things right with when it comes to your parents, kids, try it and do right by them. Moving along, we see Kiki and her mom and her daughter. I love that because I feel like there's so much more to Kiki that we haven't seen these past 3 seasons. These past 3 seasons, she's sort of been a sidekick, but I think that a lot of us want to know more about her life, and we got to, get to know her in a deeper level just a little bit more last season. So I hope that this season we get more scenes like these where she's with her mom, with her kids. And yeah, so they went to this cool ice cream museum. The place had these cool rooms, so that was fun. Kiki and her mom talk about her dad. They were talking in their native language. Kiki, she has mixed emotions because her dad wasn't the nicest. And he wasn't the nicest to her nor her mom. And the mom knows that, but she still wants her to forgive him. She says that, he's always going to be your father. So yeah, that's going to be something that Kiki's going to be having to deal with. By the way, I'm shocked that Kiki has an 18-year-old son. I was like, what? She looks like she's 28. But yeah, this was a great scene. So we get to Marisol's wedding party being thrown by Alexia. And let me tell you something about Alexia. Alexia is that annoying friend who will cry to you about how bad their ex is, and you feel so bad for them, but then like the next day they act like they never even told you. And that can be very frustrating, okay? Not, like, why are you over here not talking about, oh, Todd gave me these earrings, when the other night you were talking about F him? Like, are you serious? So everybody's arriving. I laughed when Guerdy walks on in and she's saying hi to everybody. And when she gets to Julia, she says, "Hi, I'm Guerdy. You look like a friend that I used to know." that was funny shade. It wasn't like a super crazy party with like, all over the top, but it was nice. A lot of Marisol's family was there. All the girls were there except Adriana and Lisa, of course, because she's in Canada, but Adriana was not invited. Marisol, she came in with a patch on her eye. So everyone's having a good time. The girls want to listen what happened in Milan. So Larsa is talking about her and how she and Jodi went back and forth when they were on the car. Larsa says, we went back and forth and all this stuff, but me and Lisa did make up that final night, but Jodi was super mad about it and he got all crazy because he didn't want us to talk anymore. He was this, he was that. She's like, I need to show y'all a picture of how he looked that night. So she pulls out a picture of Jodi from that night, and I don't know if I'm missing something. I don't get what about this picture is making some of them gasp, like, oh my gosh. And I'm like, he looks like he always looks like, with like his eyes are just looking like upward. Like, I don't get it. Larsa then takes it a step further and she says that she talked to Lisa and that she said to Lisa, like, don't be with Jodi because he's after your money, he's after your fame, he's always with Lisa in business calls, he wants to be like his manager. And now I think even Kiki called him a gold digger based on what Larsa said. And I was like, okay, Larsa. Is Jodi a little off? Sure. Could he perhaps indulge in some substances as we, kind of suspected on the first episode? Maybe. But to say he's after Lisa for her money, like, and by the way, you're talking bad about her while she's over there burying her dad. Just because you're single and miserable now doesn't mean you should want your friend Lisa to be single and miserable. Like, stop. That is so whack. So then as they're talking and whatever, Julia randomly gets up and runs across the room and she screams, "Congratulations, Marisol, we love you." Which, okay, it's not bad. But then Guerdy eventually says, okay, there's an issue. Me and Julia need to talk. And the girls say, yeah, that's probably a good idea. So when Julia comes back to the table, Guerdy says to her, I think we should talk. Like, do you want to talk alone or do you want to do it in front of everybody? Julia then snaps at her and says, "Hey, you're not going to be producing, okay? We're not going to clarify anything." And Guerdy's like, "How many drinks have you had? Like, this isn't a farm. Don't scream like a hyena, act like a whole animal." So Guerdy gets up to walk away from the situation, but Julia's following her, screaming at her, coming near her. They were getting too close. I was starting to get worried. They're screaming. Guerdy says, "You're disgusting," and all this stuff. So Marisol says, "Let's sit down and let's talk about what happened. How did we get here?" So they go back and sit. Guerdy then says that, Julia's been talking crap about me all summer. She's been talking to everybody but me. Julia says, "Why would I want to talk to you? You're so self-centered. Look at what you did on the boat. You just wanted to be there because Captain Sandy was there." Julia was behaving like a wacko. She was being horrible, putting her fingers in Guerdy's face, waving them around. Guerdy then begins to explain to them what happened. She was with Russell. They were, having their time. She gets a call from Julia, who was sobbing, saying that something had gone on with Martina, and she needed to go on this cruise. So Guerdy says, me being the good friend that I am, I said, I'll go with you on the cruise and you can tell me what happened. As Guerdy's trying to tell this story, though, Julia's trying to interrupt her, calling her a psychopath. So Guerdy says, "Be quiet." So Julia says, "You don't get to tell me to be quiet." And she then gets her drink, and she doesn't necessarily throw it directly at Guerdy, but she throws it to her direction, and the drink got all over Guerdy. So then they both get up. Julia is screaming, saying, "You are a liar! You're a liar! Martina had a cancer scare. You know exactly what happened. You just want to promote yourself." And, Guerdy is calling her theatrical. And then Guerdy says, "Well, let's talk about the real issue. The real issue is that Martina was sick and you still wanted to go to the party at this chip. And while Martina was getting chemo, you were in New York getting a facelift." Oof. So Kiki is trying to get Guerdy out of the room, but Guerdy doesn't want to leave, and I get it. Like, why should she leave? She's not the type that's gonna like fight or hit her anyway. If anything, Julia should leave. They bring out the wedding cake after that, and like that was the end of the episode. I'm a little disappointed in Alexia not saying anything, and I get that Julia's like her bestie now, but I know that if the roles were reversed and had it been Guerdy who had thrown that drink, I know for a fact that Marisol, Alexia, and Larsa would have said something about it. And I do think there was somebody that did say to Julia that like it wasn't cool to like throw anything, but I feel like it wasn't that, like they weren't really like that mad at her. But yeah, you guys, Julia's doing the most. I don't know where's all this anger coming from. Like, it doesn't make any sense. But you guys, please let me know what your thoughts were about this episode. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll catch y'all next time. You'll have a great one. Bye.